Hey, it is your girl Abby, aka New Age Coach, and I am lighting the way for those on their way to the light. And to my soul vibers, that is those of you out there who are already subscribed to this channel, thank you. Anyone new who was just tuning in, welcome. On this channel, we talk all things self and soul development. So if you like that vibe and you want to join the tribe, then hit subscribe. Oh, that's just me waiting for you to hit the subscribe button. Yeah. Did you do it yet? Okay, wait, I'll give it another second. Okay, thanks. In this video, I want to talk about my third time going to a well, technically that's six the way I just did that, but my third time going to a float tank. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what a float tank actually is and some of its amazing healing and spiritual benefits, well, fear not, because I did make a video about my first float tank experience, and I will link that. And in that video, I talk about what it actually is, what you can expect, how to prepare for your own session, all the juicy tea about float tanks. So you definitely want to check out that video if you are curious about the specifics, because in this video, I just wanted to talk about my actual experience on this third time. I really just wanted to touch upon the lessons that I learned from this third float tank that were given to me. At a very high level, I left that session with a quote that I kept hearing, which was, trust the water. The second thing I left that session with was to trust that everything is still progress. Whether you think you're making progress or not, or that you're moving or floating along or not, the truth is you are. You're always moving in life. The third lesson I learned in that flow session was to open my eyes. So lesson one, trust the water. That came about because, you have to get settled into kind of feeling the float out, and it's an hour session, so it takes a little bit for you to get out of your head, get into the groove. But once I started to relax into it, I would hear this kind of voice in my head that would say, trust the water. And I realized that I wasn't fully committed to actually resting in it. Like, I wouldn't let my whole body actually completely float. Like, and I was holding all my tension in my neck. And every time I would hear trust the water, I'd let go a little bit and realize that I still had more to trust, more to open up and just let the water take me away. So every time I heard trust the water, it was literally me having to trust that the universe does have my back. I don't actually have to put any effort into it. I just have to trust it literally, and it will take care of itself. And that was just huge. And every time I would hear that and let go a little bit more, I'd sink a little deeper into my meditation or just a little bit deeper into the water. But it was just a very cool, spiritual lesson that was happening at the same time in real life, that I could actually see, like, the more I actually physically let go and trust this water, the more I was actually getting deeper into this meditation. So it just went hand in hand, and it was just like a beautiful sentiment overall that I think we could all use as a reminder. Not just trusting water, but really, it's not the water that I have to trust. Like, it's physically impossible to go under that water with the amount of salt in there. So the actual lesson is trusting yourself enough to know that the water will carry you. You have to trust yourself to be able to let go like that. And that's been a huge theme that's been coming up for me over and over again. And it just felt so freeing to literally just let go and be supported and be taken care of, and know that that's all a result of from me trusting myself in that process. The second lesson, that you're always making progress. And basically, there would be these moments where I was so deep into this float. Like, I don't even know what planet I was on, where I was floating. Like, I do not know where I was, but it was beautiful. It was peaceful. But there would be these moments in time where physically my body would hit the side of the float. Like, I had literally floated from where I started. I had moved to a completely different section, and I would feel my actual physical skin like bump into the other side of it. Then I'd float and I'd go back into my meditation and I'd hit the other side of the wall. And it wasn't like I'm hitting a wall, like constantly feeling stuck, or metaphorically hitting a wall. Quite the opposite, because that's been a energy I've been stuck in as well for quite some time, where I always talk about feeling stuck and not knowing what to do. But quite the opposite happened in this float for me. Upon subtly hitting that wall and kind of moving around in that tank without me knowing it, it actually registered for me as, whoa, this is progress. So often we get so caught up in our heads, especially when we're on this physical journey, with comparison or thinking we need to be here, or that we're not spiritual enough, or that, we're not good enough, or this person's doing that. It's a comparison game sometimes. And it's also just you comparing yourself to yourself, because you know you've made so much progress from who you used to be, yet you still feel like you haven't made the strides that you're still capable of. And that can sometimes be hard to reconcile for yourself when you're on this journey. So me hitting those little different areas of the tank without even knowing it was symbolic that that's the catch-22. You may not think that you're hitting these milestones or benchmarks that you, quite frankly, place on yourself. This is all pressure and stress that you place on yourself. But the honest to God truth is, no matter what we do, just by the fact that we're alive, we're aware, and we're taking care of ourselves and showing ourselves love and showing up for ourselves to do things like float tanks, like, everything means something. Everything in this life has a meaning, and you're always moving. Energy is always moving, and you're always growing as a result. You are going from this point to this point to this point to this point. It's not a linear path. None of us can understand that because it's not a linear path. But the fact is, it is a wave that you're riding called life, and the littlest movements make the biggest ripples. And you don't always necessarily know that. So it can be stressful, but that's part of the trusting process that I was just talking about. You have to trust and believe that things happen. Things are happening for you. You are growing, and it's all part of the journey, but you are never stuck. You are never contained to one spot. This whole journey is about growing. So moving from one place to the other so subtly and so fluidly with the motion of the water was just so symbolic as a reminder to give yourself that pat on the back and just look at the you from last year to the you now, and just be grateful for everything you've learned, for all of the knowledge you've accumulated, from all of the experiences you've had. Like, you are not the same person. You never will be again. And you're always going to keep changing and evolving. And that's the beauty of this journey called life. The third last thing that I talked about was, eyes wide open. And what I mean by that is there were some really amazing euphoric moments that I had in this tank. And one that stood out is, I'd be floating along, and I'd be, like I said, in a very meditative state. And I could all of a sudden, with my eyes closed, feel like I could see through this one eye. Like, basically, I felt like my two eyes became like an eye like this in the center of my forehead, and I could see the top of it and the bottom of it, and it was just this one eye. And I couldn't see any visions or anything, but I just knew that I was looking through this like single eye from the middle of my head here. And it was so peaceful. But then I kept hearing like, open your eyes. And like my eyes physically, my two eyes actually like pinged open, like they just needed to stay open. I couldn't actually keep them closed if I wanted to. Yet I was still having that same experience with both my eyes. I knew they opened, but I was still seeing through this kind of one vision, this one eye. The message I was getting from it is, basically you're woke, like you're awake, and it's about perspective. And when you think you have to do meditation to feel like you're connected, or do all these spiritual things to feel connected, but the truth is, your eyes are open. You have to live your 3D life. Your eyes physically will need to be open, but that doesn't mean your third eye is closed. That doesn't mean your spirituality is cut off. Those two things can live together. So you bring that spirituality and that perspective to your everyday life. So basically the message I was getting is, don't worry, like even when your eyes are open and you're going about your day-to-day life, your eye is still open. Like the veil is lifted. This is how you see. It was just such a really, just a cool experience to see actual, like a metaphor, or like actually see that like panning out in kind of this experience that I was having in the float tank. And I just thought that was a beautiful reminder where, I made a video, I believe it was last week or the week before, talking about, here I am doing all of these like spiritual things consecutively and maybe not having the right reason to do them because I was feeling so disconnected and trying to like look outside of myself for that. So this was just a great reminder to bring me back and say, you know what, like you don't need all of that stuff. You don't need to go, meditation all all this stuff is great. All these spiritual tools that we use are great, you know, but ultimately, you know, you have this within you and you have it, you know, whether you're meditating or not, when you're awake, you know. So it's about living your life too and knowing that it is all you. This whole journey, it is all in you. You are it. Like, we just forget how freaking powerful and amazing we are, and we forget to go with this flow so often. So this float tank just brought that flow back into my life, and I'm very grateful for this last float tank. I have just the utmost respect for float tanks and using this as a tool. If you haven't tried one, please, I implore you, definitely check out a float center near you. Do it. With all that said, I will not keep you waiting any longer. Come with me in the rest of this video where you'll actually get to see the float center I went to, the actual float tank I was in, and just the aftermath of having some tea and getting to talk about our experiences with two of the people I love. So let's go. We're going to a float. We're going to a float. We're going to the float.